I'm Zach Johnson, also known as the Millennial Farmer.
They didn't grow up around agriculture, they don't understand a lot about it, and now they can see it from an inside view.
The biggest thing I would hope to get across to just highlight the fact that farmers are people, and we are still...
Most people think Zach Johnson became famous just by filming tractors. They couldn't be more wrong. Nobody saw what was coming. Zach thought he would spend his entire life quietly farming the same Minnesota land his family had worked for generations. Then, one unexpected decision changed everything. Almost overnight, millions of people were watching his every move, transforming an ordinary farmer into one of YouTube's biggest success stories. But behind the viral videos, booming harvests, and smiling family moments was a side of the story most viewers never knew existed. So what really happened to Zach Johnson? And how did a simple farmer end up building something far bigger than anyone ever imagined? The video that changed his life forever. Zach Johnson never planned on becoming famous. Born into a sixth-generation farming family from Lowry, Minnesota, farming was never a choice growing up. It was simply the entire world. Generations before him had worked the same land, planting the same crops, and building a livelihood around agriculture. Long before YouTube ever entered the picture, the expectation was simple: keep the family operation moving forward, just as those before him had done. Social media fame, sponsorships, and millions of subscribers were never part of that plan. In April 2016, frustration finally boiled over. Endless online negativity attacking modern farming, GMOs, and pesticides had become impossible to ignore. Farmers were often portrayed as careless or unconcerned about the environment, despite living with the consequences of every decision they made. Kids swam in the same lakes those fields drained into. Drinking water came from the same wells sitting right underneath the crops. The people growing the food were also raising their own families on that same land. Yet those realities were rarely part of the public conversation. Instead of arguing in comment sections, a phone came out instead. Rather than trying to win debates with strangers online, Zach decided to show people what farming actually looked like. The earliest videos covered basic spring planting, equipment preparation, and ordinary daily farm chores. There were no expensive cameras, dramatic editing techniques, or carefully planned storylines. Everything was filmed as it happened, creating an honest look at life on a modern American farm. Nobody involved expected any of it to matter, beyond a handful of curious viewers interested in seeing life behind the scenes. The very first viral clip brought in a payment of $92. That number felt almost unbelievable at the time, a strange amount of money just for filming corn and talking into a camera. The payment itself was small, but it proved something completely unexpected. People were genuinely interested in watching modern farming. Nobody watching that milestone could have guessed what was coming next. Fall 2017 changed the entire trajectory. A video covering harvest preparation hit 100,000 views within just 3 to 4 days. Massive combines rolling through real fields captivated an audience that had never given farming a second thought before. For many viewers living in cities or suburbs, it was their first real look inside an operation responsible for producing the food that eventually reached grocery store shelves. Subscribers flooded in almost overnight. By the close of that harvest season, the channel had jumped from 7,000 subscribers all the way to 30,000. The steady stream of new viewers confirmed that interest in agriculture stretched far beyond farming communities themselves. A goal of reaching 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2018 seemed ambitious at best, especially for a channel focused almost entirely on cornfields, machinery, and everyday farm life. That goal did not just get reached, it got completely shattered. The channel closed out 2018 with more than 200,000 followers, a number that caught everyone off guard. including the person behind the camera. What had started as a simple attempt to explain farming had quietly grown into one of the fastest-rising agricultural channels on YouTube. Without setting out to become an internet personality, Zach had accidentally built something much bigger than anyone imagined. And the farming community was about to witness a transformation nobody saw coming. But the real engine behind the growth was working quietly behind the scenes. The untold story of Becky Johnson. While Zach Johnson became the recognizable face of the channel, Becky Johnson became the actual architect running everything behind it. A former daycare provider with zero background in video editing, social media strategy, or business management suddenly had to learn all three at once. What began as a way to help her husband quickly evolved into a full-time role that would become one of the biggest reasons the channel continued growing year after year. The decision came down to pure necessity. Farm days started around 6 in the morning and often stretched until 11 at night. During planting and harvest, there was barely enough time to sleep, let alone sort through hours of video footage. Checking grain dryers overnight, farming all day, and editing footage for hours simply was not sustainable for one person alone. If the channel was going to survive alongside a demanding farming operation, someone had to take over everything happening behind the camera. Every evening before bed, a memory card got pulled from the camera and left behind for editing the next morning. While tractors rolled through the fields outside, Becky sat indoors reviewing footage, cutting clips together, uploading videos, writing descriptions, creating thumbnails, and preparing everything for publication. That routine repeated itself day after day, week after week, and season after season, gradually turning what started as a hobby into a professionally managed business. Becky Johnson did far more than editing alone. Advanced editing techniques got self-taught through online tutorials, all finances got managed personally, every sponsorship negotiation got handled directly, and the entire social media strategy across multiple platforms ran through one determined former daycare provider turned full-time business manager. Without any formal training, she quietly built the operational side of one of YouTube's biggest agricultural brands, while Zach remained focused on farming and creating content. At the very same time, family life never slowed down. 4 children filled the household as the business exploded. 3 biological children plus a niece who had been adopted into the family. School schedules, meals, appointments, and everyday parenting responsibilities all continued alongside editing deadlines and business meetings. Somehow, between diapers, homework, and upload schedules, a rhythm formed that actually worked. By 2019, the financial numbers became impossible to ignore. A sit-down conversation between Zach and Becky Johnson revealed something almost nobody could have predicted. The YouTube channel alone had generated 5 times more income than the actual farming operation. Generations of the Johnson family had worked that exact land for well over a century. Now, a camera pointed at cornfields was out-earning generations of tradition, an outcome that felt both exciting and deeply surreal. What had started as a simple attempt to educate the public had quietly evolved into an entirely new business. Industry estimates placed YouTube ad revenue alone at roughly $290,000 annually. Sponsorship deals with major companies, including a farmer's business network, a well-known tractor brand, and a popular lubricant company, reportedly added anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 per branded post. Those partnerships gave the business an entirely new level of financial stability, while allowing the content to remain focused on everyday farming. Merchandise sales moved fast too, with over 2,000 pieces selling within the first 6 days after launch. A podcast covering farming topics regularly pulled 50 to 70,000 downloads per single episode, adding yet another revenue stream on top of everything already building. What had begun with simple phone videos had expanded into a diversified media business reaching audiences far beyond the farming community. But despite the financial success, the real shock had nothing to do with money at all. The tragedy that changed everything, 2 years into major YouTube success, tragedy struck close to home. In December 2019, 3 family members, including an 11-year-old boy, lost their lives after being overcome by fumes while working inside a harvest storage silo only 20 miles away. News of the accident spread quickly throughout the local farming community, reminding everyone how dangerous agricultural work could become in a matter of moments. It was the kind of loss that reached far beyond a single family, affecting neighbors, emergency responders, and farmers across the region. Local volunteer firefighters attempted a rescue, but lacked the proper equipment to make it happen safely. The entire farming community felt the weight of that loss immediately. 2 neighbors had already been rescued from a grain bin not long before, and Minnesota, along with North Dakota, were leading the entire country in grain bin-related deaths. For many rural communities, these emergencies were not rare tragedies, but recurring risks that volunteer departments often faced without the specialized tools needed to respond effectively. Rural first responders across the region simply did not have the equipment, funding, or training required for emergencies like these. That gap became impossible to ignore once it hit so close to home. For Zach Johnson, the tragedy highlighted a problem that had existed for years but rarely attracted widespread attention. If something positive could come from such an unimaginable loss, it would have to be preventing another family from experiencing the same heartbreak. A nonprofit called Harvest Outreach launched shortly after, built specifically around grain bin safety education and equipment funding. Rather than simply raising awareness through videos, the organization focused on providing practical resources that local departments could immediately put to use. Using videos, live streams, and a massive built-in audience, a fundraising campaign began with the goal of equipping volunteer fire departments across multiple states with specialized rescue equipment, while also supporting additional safety education. The response exceeded expectations. More than $110,000 was raised, funding rescue equipment and proper training across roughly 60 to 70 rural fire departments spread throughout 13 states. The impact soon became more than theoretical. Equipment purchased through those donations later helped save a real life during an emergency in Illinois, proving the campaign had accomplished exactly what it had been created to do. What began as a response to tragedy evolved into an effort capable of protecting farming communities far beyond Minnesota. Behind all that good work, though, a much harder personal struggle kept building. Success on camera came with a cost that rarely gets discussed publicly. A deep identity struggle sat underneath every video, every sponsorship, and every milestone reached along the way. Farming had always been the core identity, the thing meant to last forever. Yet reality told a very different story. The YouTube channel continued demanding more time, more planning, more travel, and more business responsibilities with every passing year. More time was being spent inside the social media world than out in the actual fields most weeks. Ancestors going back to the 1870s had built an entire family legacy around working that same soil, planting the same crops, and harvesting season after season without interruption. Now the daily routine looked very different. Meetings, sponsorship calls, filming schedules, and content planning increasingly competed with the work that had defined the Johnson family for generations. Even with that shift, the farm itself never stopped operating. Zach's father continued running the 2,400-acre operation full-time, often picking up extra responsibilities whenever media obligations pulled attention away from fieldwork. That support made it possible to balance both worlds, but it also reinforced an uncomfortable reality. The business built around documenting farming was beginning to consume time that would otherwise have been spent actually farming. Concerns about long-term stability weighed heavily too. Algorithm changes on any platform could wipe out an entire income stream overnight, leaving a family business built on borrowed ground with almost no warning. Unlike farmland or machinery, online success could never be guaranteed. A future with fewer uploads and more time in the fields remained a possibility. But for now, two identities continued pulling in opposite directions. One represented generations of family tradition. The other represented an unexpected future that had changed the course of Zach Johnson's life forever. The farmer who changed the internet. While that identity struggle played out privately, public reach kept expanding in ways that surprised everyone involved. Crossing over 1 million subscribers and hundreds of millions of lifetime views eventually made Millennial Farmer the most watched farming channel anywhere on YouTube. What had started with a phone camera and a desire to answer criticism had quietly become one of the most influential agricultural platforms in the world, reaching viewers far beyond the traditional farming community. Research uncovered something unexpected buried inside those massive numbers. Roughly half the total audience were not farmers at all. Urban viewers with zero personal connection to agriculture made up a huge share of regular watchers, drawn in purely by curiosity about where food actually comes from. Many had never stepped inside a tractor, walked through a cornfield, or seen harvest season up close. For them, the channel became a rare window into an industry that affects everyone, but remains largely invisible to most consumers. That shift in audience completely changed the channel's significance. It was no longer simply farmers watching another farmer. It had become a bridge between two completely different worlds. Every planting season, harvest update, equipment repair, and weather challenge helped people understand the complexity behind producing the food that eventually reached supermarket shelves. A consistent mission never changed from the very first upload: become a national voice for agriculture, provide farmer-to-farmer education, and build a genuine conversation between farmers and the general public. Early videos broke down complicated topics like GMOs, pesticides, precision agriculture, and modern farm management using plain, honest language instead of technical jargon. Rather than arguing with critics, Zach chose to explain how modern farming actually worked, allowing viewers to draw their own conclusions based on what they saw. Clean water was never framed as only a consumer issue either. It mattered just as much to the person growing the food. Farmers raised their own children on that land, drank from the same groundwater, and depended on healthy soil for future harvests. Those personal realities rarely made headlines, but they became recurring themes throughout the channel. That honesty became the entire appeal. Nothing about the content felt scripted or performed, just an authentic farmer with a dry sense of humor, letting strangers into a world most people never get to see up close. That authenticity also built an unusually loyal audience. Viewers returned not only for the machinery and harvest footage, but because they felt connected to the people behind the camera. Instead of polished productions designed for maximum entertainment, the videos documented real setbacks alongside real successes. Equipment failures, difficult weather, delayed planting, and long harvest nights remained part of the story rather than being edited away. And that authenticity opened the door to even bigger projects. In 2019, a podcast called Off the Husk launched, backed by a major agricultural sponsor. Candid conversations about farming topics regularly pulled 50 to 70,000 downloads per single episode, giving an entirely new audience a different way to stay connected beyond video content alone. The podcast expanded discussions that could not always fit inside a YouTube upload, allowing longer conversations about agriculture, technology, business, and everyday life on the farm. Family content expanded the brand even further. A video featuring a 10-year-old learning to operate farm equipment became one of the single most popular uploads on the entire channel, pulling in over 4 million views total. Viewers clearly wanted more than farming tips. They wanted to watch an entire legacy get passed down in real time. Watching another generation develop a love for agriculture added an emotional layer that machinery alone could never provide. In December 2020, a second channel launched, dedicated purely to family moments and a dirt track racing hobby completely separate from farming content. The move allowed audiences to see another side of life beyond planting and harvest, showing that the Johnson family existed outside the fields as well. Recognition kept building steadily too. A Minnesota Agricultural Foundation later honored this work with a media award, praising the transparency and positive advocacy shown across nearly a decade of content. The influence of the platform continued growing beyond entertainment. Farm rescue volunteer work began in 2022, helping farmers facing real emergencies while raising awareness through the very platform that made all of this possible. A scholarship partnership eventually formed as well, funding college opportunities for students pursuing agriculture-related degrees. What had started as a response to online criticism was now creating opportunities for the next generation of farmers. Most videos covering this story stop somewhere around the scholarship expansion and call it finished. What almost nobody else has covered is what actually happened years later, once the channel reached a full decade online. In September 2024, a major agricultural publication selected Zach Johnson for a special honor, recognizing individuals making a genuine difference across the industry. Timed deliberately during National Farm Safety Week, turning 40 years old around this same period, added extra weight to the recognition, marking 8 full years of consistent content built entirely around honesty over polish. By August 2025, subscriber numbers had climbed past 1.2 million, with an invitation to moderate a panel at a major Minnesota farming event focused entirely on the future of agriculture. Conversations there touched on something deeply personal: the pride and the pressure tied to potentially raising a 7th generation of farmers on that exact same land. Even after years of online success, protecting the family legacy remained the priority. Then came the milestone almost no competing video has mentioned. In May 2026, the channel officially crossed 10 full years online, an anniversary recognized by regional public radio as a rare achievement in the constantly changing world of online content creation. From $92 to a 10-year milestone, this story proves one honest camera can outlast almost anything. A tired farmer picking up a phone accidentally built something bigger than farming itself, something still saving lives and funding futures today. Drop a comment on what part of this story surprised you the most. Hit like if this video earned it, and subscribe for more untold stories about the people quietly changing entire industries.